Why are Europeans skinny? And why are Americans fat when we both eat the same things? Bread, butter, pasta, all these kind of carbs. Well, let's take a look at Quora where someone's asked exactly that. Why are Europeans not as fat as Americans are? When Europeans eat white bread, pasta and butter all the time. Let's get into it. So the first answer I'm going to look at is from Polina, and she's from Russia, and she's been to the US 3 times in her teenage years for several months each time. I've always ate intuitively, I guess. I never restricted myself or counted calories, both at home and in the US. I'm not prone to binge eating or eating a lot of junk food. I like to eat fruits and vegetables more than sweets, and most of the time if I buy junk food, it just ends up on a shelf until someone else eats it. On top of that, my weight doesn't really fluctuate at all. I think I've had the same physique and weight since I was 14. So when I came to the USA, I ate the same way that I always do. Actually, I ate even more fruit and vegetables and berries because they were so conveniently packaged at Costco. I just munched on broccoli for several months there, I think. But despite me not really changing anything in what I eat, or eating even more fresh produce, I gained several kilos each time I was in the US and lost them quickly back after returning home. So this was Polina before her last trip in 2019. So she's like quite skinny from the looks of it. And this was me on my last day of the trip. And you can see, I don't know if it's just because it's a wide angle lens, but her face looks a little bit more round. Well, quite a bit more round actually, compared to the top one. So she goes on to say, I think you can clearly see that my cheeks grew a lot and my face is more round. I also noticed that food, especially fresh produce, looks much prettier in the US than here. Strawberries were huge and shiny. We only get those here when they're off season in expensive stores, and not many people actually buy it. We mostly buy seasonal fruits. Berries are mostly for summertime, while in winter we buy pomegranates, clementines and oranges. Bread in the US stays fresh and soft for several months, while here we buy bread several times a week because it's freshly baked and goes stale quickly. A lot of food in the US is pre-prepared, shredded cheese, etc., which we don't really have in Russia. If you want shredded cheese, you have to shred it yourself. And it's also really hard to find the same cheeses. The colours are not even close. I think there's so much more additives in the food in the US that makes it look more pleasant looking, even though it makes the food much less healthy. So Ian has a response here. He says, I just watched a documentary on American food standards, and it says the excessive number of additives, many of which are banned in Europe, are added for various reasons, which can include appearance, taste, shelf life, and to promote the feeling of hunger. Can't believe bread in the US lasts months. That's just not right. I'm not shaving this beard until I get 1,000 subscribers. Help me get a clean shave and press that subscribe button. So Kevin says that food is definitely a factor, but I think the bigger reason is that US cities are designed for cars. Most Americans have to drive when they want to leave their homes. There's fewer opportunities to be physically active. So Steven says, this is Barcelona. It looks very cool and everything's sectioned off into squares. It feels like I'm playing City Skylines. Barcelona isn't really typical, but you can see that it isn't built for cars. People in Barcelona generally walk to meet their needs. And when something is too far away to walk, they take transit or cycle. Most European cities are laid out in this way: compact, dense, and most importantly, walkable. Barcelona has a very large metro population of 5.6 million people. So by comparison, this is Houston, the fattest city in the United States. Sure, it has a very dense core, but if you look real close, those big buildings aren't that close to each other. There are loads of parking lots in between them. Houston has a marginal public transport, so pretty much the only way to get around or to get anything is by car. Most US cities, with the notable exceptions of older cities like New York, Boston and San Francisco, are laid out this way. Houston has a metro population of 7.4 million, which isn't that much larger than Barcelona, but it's spread out massively over a large area. And we can see just by the picture here, it does look a lot more dense. You've got the big tall buildings compared to Barcelona. But just like the poster said, it kind of looks like there's a lot of car parks, so it's kind of hard to tell because we're so far away. But you can see the huge highway sort of going around, connecting everything like a vein. Oh, so here we go, we've got a map here. Here's a typical slice of Barcelona with businesses everywhere, mixed in with residential housing. Yep, so it looks like there's a lot of little shops all close to each other. It looks very much like it is here in the UK. Right, and here's a little slice of Houston, with all the stores pushed to the arterial roads on the outside. The block is 16 times larger than the block above. Some commenters call European cities the gym of life. You don't need to exercise because you're mostly getting exercise just by going about your daily activities of going to work and running errands. If you need a quart of milk in Barcelona, you walk to the store. If you need a quart of milk in Houston, you jump in your car. So he's linked a YouTuber here called Not Just Bikes. I've seen this channel before, and he talks all about walkable cities and how he hates the way that American cities are set up and prioritizes cars. So in the video, the poster summarized that he takes a half-hour walk of about 800 yards, and it's put the YouTuber who made this video within feet of heavy traffic. Sidewalks were non-existent. Note, he didn't even cross the street to feel uncomfortable. In many parts of the United States, trying to cross the street is a life-threatening activity. Meanwhile, in Barcelona, look at all the space for pedestrians. Also look at all the pedestrians. So we can see them all going about their daily life. There's loads of space here. And there's a big row of mopeds and motorbikes, it looks like, all parked up on the side. It's not like Houston isn't trying. So this picture here is a Bagby Street, which has received a lot of improvements to make it more walkable. However, there's still 3 lanes of traffic, making it difficult to cross. And you can see no one is even bothering to use it. Yeah, so the road just looks huge here. There's no one walking around. Well, it looks like there could be someone walking on the path on the left, but it's a very small picture. But by comparison, it just looks sort of desolate compared to Barcelona. So just to finish this off, there's an overhead view of Paris, and he says here in Paris, 94% of the population lives within a 5-minute walk of a bakery. Most people in Houston don't live within a 5-minute drive of a bakery, or a place that they can buy bread. So we've talked about city design, but Thomas here wants to get back to the case of food. As someone has pointed out already, it's not true that Europeans are not as fat as Americans. Obesity epidemic in Europe lags behind America by about 20 years. It developed earlier in America and it's rising faster, but both continents are clearly getting fatter. One reason for that is, and he's included a picture of a C ration packet here, looks quite old. During World War II, American food processing industry exploded. The country needed to prepare lots of food in a convenient, easy to use packages for troops on the front line, 5,000 kilometers away or more from American shores. You can't do this with fresh food, so various types of techniques were employed to process the food in such a way that it will keep for the journey and be available for quick and simple consumption. That food processing industry didn't die after the war, quite to the contrary. The factories simply retooled somewhat and began to offer these same highly processed foods to consumers. I use highly processed here for a reason. Almost all food is processed in some way, if only by cutting into pieces with a knife. When I say highly processed, I refer mostly to the process of separating the main component parts out of the ingredient, then recombining them to form a meal. All types of instant powders, sugars and dehydrated foods, oil and other cooking fats, instant meals of any kind are examples of highly processed foods. So I do agree with Thomas on a few points. One, there is a lot of fat people here in the UK at least. Not that we're technically in Europe, but situationally in the world we kind of are in Europe, like that area. So yes, there generally you do end up seeing more obese people than you do skinny people, I would say, for the most part. So obesity is still rising, and generally I still see a lot of younger people looking a lot fatter than I remember when I was a kid. Very overweight. I see it all the time. And I do think it comes down to probably just majority of their diets are highly processed foods, like eating McDonald's, drinking lots of like Monster energy drinks or Pepsi or whatever it is. I see a lot of younger people, that's their diet. Some people stay really skinny eating like that, and some people get really fat. But yes, it's an interesting topic to look into, and there's not a real clear answer with how the world is right now, unless you were to strip everyone's food away from them and be like, this is what we're eating now. That's not going to happen, is it? So you've got to look out for yourself, make sure you're eating the right things, but sometimes that can be hard. Like Paulina was saying, when she went to America, she tried to eat vegetables as much as she could, but she probably ate some other things, and those things caused her to gain some weight. So really, we're all just products of our environments and the food that we have available to us. Anyway, if you like this video, there's going to be 2 videos popping up right now. One of them might pique your interest. So if they do, have a little click. And anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please press that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you very much.